The salt-sweet breeze drifting across the Amalfi Coast tasted like something I hadn't felt in nearly a decade. Permission to breathe. For the first time in 9 years. I wasn't tucked into a windowless conference room at Bruxelles DataWorks, fixing crisis after crisis for people who never even learned my last name. I wasn't canceling plans, skipping holidays, or apologizing to friends for being on call again. I was simply still. My name is Fiorina Miles, Senior Workflow Architect, a fancy way of saying I kept the entire company's operational spine from collapsing on itself. But that afternoon, sitting on a cliffside terrace with the sun warming my shoulders and a glass of chilled lemon spritz in hand, I allowed myself to imagine a life where my value wasn't measured in how much I could endure. Then my phone vibrated. I made the mistake of looking. Graham Turner, my boss, a man who once said that employees who need vacations don't have the stamina for real leadership. I answered out of reflex, and his voice erupted through the speaker before I could breathe. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" "Fiorina A. Vacation during audit preparation week. My leave was approved," I said calmly. "We don't approve laziness. Consider this your termination, effective immediately." The world should have crashed. But instead, something inside me clicked free. I let the silence stretch. Then I laughed. Not out of disrespect, but relief, pure, sharp, overdue relief. I hung up before he could add another threat. A soft chuckle rose from across the table. "Trouble?" the man asked, polished suit. Quiet confidence. A presence that didn't need to announce itself. His name was Adrian Cole, a tech magnate I had met only hours earlier after a booking mix-up placed us at the same private dining table. I lifted my glass. I just got fired. He didn't look shocked. He looked intrigued. "Well," he said, tapping his glass to mine, "then it's probably time the right people finally noticed you." I didn't know it yet, but Graham's tantrum wasn't an ending. It was ignition. Adrian's glass still hovered mid-air when my phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look. But old habits die slowly. One glance at the screen made my amusement fade into something colder, sharper. 3 new messages from Graham. Short, petty, panicked. "Return your laptop immediately. HR will contact you regarding asset recovery. Your non-compete will make sure no one hires you in this industry again." A week ago, those sentences would have crushed me. Years of overwork had trained my nervous system to flinch at anything resembling a threat. But now, sitting under soft evening lights, with the Tyrrhenian Sea stretching out behind us, they felt small. Paper tigers roaring into the wind. Adrian noticed the shift in my expression. "Let me guess," he said calmly. "He's realizing he overplayed his hand." I exhaled slowly. "He thinks fear still works on me." "Does it?" I looked out at the water. "Not anymore." He nodded, as if that answer told him everything. "You know?" he began, swirling the last of his wine. "Bruxelles DataWorks has been leaking clients for years. Everyone in the industry knows their operational backbone relies on one person. I just didn't know that person was sitting across from me." The words hit harder than they should have. I wasn't used to being recognized, not beyond being the person who fixed whatever mess someone else created. "Fiorina," he continued. "Some companies survive because of their leadership, others survive in spite of it. Bruxelles is the latter, and that's not sustainable." A quiet laugh escaped me, painful. Because it was true. Before I could respond, a familiar voice echoed from behind us. "There you are." I turned to see Lila Rourke, a systems strategist from a partner firm, stepping onto the terrace. She froze when she saw who I was sitting with. "Oh, Adrian, I didn't realize you were meeting someone." "Not meeting," he said with that effortless confidence. "Discovering." Lila raised an eyebrow at me, silently asking questions I wasn't ready to answer. But before she could speak, she caught sight of my phone screen, Graham's final message still visible. Her face tightened. "He fired you during audit week." Her voice wasn't shocked. It was furious. "That man has no idea how exposed he is," she muttered. arms crossing. Half the vendor contracts depend on your oversight. Does he even understand the chain reaction he just triggered? My heart kicked harder, not from fear, but dawning realization. No, he didn't. And that was the problem. Adrian leaned back, studying me with quiet satisfaction. It seems your former employer is about to experience something they've avoided for years. What's that? I asked. The consequences of underestimating the wrong woman. A breeze swept across the terrace, carrying away the remnants of panic I once would have drowned in. For the first time, I wasn't the overworked architect behind the curtain. I was the variable Graham hadn't accounted for. And the next move wasn't his. It was mine. If you think it's obvious, don't comment. If it's not obvious, just say it. By the time I returned to my hotel room, the Italian night had settled over the coast like a soft velvet curtain, but the serenity outside didn't match the storm building inside my phone. 26 missed notifications, 6 voicemails, a flood of emails. I sat on the edge of the bed, exhaling as I opened the first message from Harper Quinn, one of the few colleagues at Brixel who understood how fragile the company's internal systems truly were. Please tell me Graham didn't actually fire you. Audit prep is collapsing. Clark tried to run your sequence and crashed the reconciliation module. Clients are already asking for you by name. A second message arrived before I could respond. He told us you abandoned your responsibilities. No one believes him. I closed my eyes, letting the weight of 7 years settle over me, not as exhaustion, but clarity. Brixel wasn't broken because I left. It had always been broken. My absence simply made the fractures visible. A voicemail from HR came next. The tone was stiff, scripted, almost rehearsed. Per protocol, please return all company assets within 72 hours. We will also review your obligations under the confidentiality and restrictive activity clauses. Translation: Graham was panicking, and he needed bureaucracy to save him. But bureaucracy only works when the system beneath it is stable, and Brixel without me wasn't. I tossed the phone aside, letting it land softly on the duvet. For the first time in nearly a decade, the crisis wasn't mine to fix. A knock sounded at the door. When I opened it, Lila stood there with 2 espresso cups and a knowing look. I figured you might need this, she said, stepping inside. Word travels fast. Half the consultants at the retreat are talking about you. I blinked. Me? She nodded. Adrian mentioned you to a few people. The respect in the room shifted. Fiorina, you should have seen it. I wasn't sure what startled me more, that Adrian had spoken about me, or that people actually listened. Lila set the cups on the table. You've kept Brixel afloat for years. Everyone knows it, everyone except the man who signs your evaluations. Her voice softened. You're free now. So, what do you want to do next? The same question Adrian had asked earlier. The same question I'd spent years avoiding. I glanced out the balcony door toward the distant shimmer of the water. I said slowly, I want to stop surviving and start choosing. Lila studied me, then smiled. Then choose well. Because Graham, he has no idea what's coming. As she left, I picked up my phone again. Another email had just arrived, this one from a major client. Subject line: urgent, requesting continuity with Fiorina Miles. I stared at it. Heartbeat steady and sure. My story with Brixel wasn't over. But the next chapter would be written on my terms. The morning I left Italy, the sky over Naples was washed in pink and gold, too gentle, too peaceful for the message waiting on my phone. It was from the same major client who'd emailed hours earlier. Except this time, the tone carried something heavier than urgency. We need clarity. Who is handling Fiorina's portfolio? Our deliverables are now 3 days behind schedule. I hadn't even boarded the plane yet. By the time we took off, Wi-Fi flickered on, and the consequences of Graham's impulsive tantrum were already unfolding across my inbox, like a slow, inevitable detonation. A thread of internal emails, dozens long, revealed the chaos in real time. Clark, I can't complete the audit prep. The reconciliation algorithm keeps producing error codes I don't recognize. Operations lead. That's because Fiorina customized half the architecture 3 years ago. No one else knows how to run it. Finance director clients are escalating. Someone needs to explain what's happening. And then one message from Graham himself. Find Fiorina's documentation. She must have left something behind. No one is irreplaceable. I almost laughed out loud at 30,000 feet. Documentation. The system didn't run on documentation. It ran on insight. Years of refinement. Thousands of micro-adjustments based on instinct and pattern recognition knowledge you only gained by being in the trenches long enough to see the whole structure breathe. You can't download that. You earn it. But the most gutting message came from Harper. He's blaming you, telling leadership you sabotaged the workflow. People are pushing back finally, but it's ugly. I stared at the screen, pulse steady, surprisingly calm. He was unraveling exactly as Adrian predicted. A flight attendant paused beside me. Everything all right? Ma'am, I nodded with a polite smile. Everything is finally how it should be. Hours later, when the wheels touched down and the California air greeted me, reality felt different, heavier, but in a way that grounded rather than suffocated. I wasn't returning as the woman who once absorbed everyone's failures. I was someone with options now. As I rolled my suitcase through arrivals, another call came, an unknown number. Normally I'd ignore it, but something in my chest said answer. Hello? A familiar voice responded. Low, strained, trying and failing to mask panic. Fiorina! This is Trevor? Trevor? The analyst Graham had tried to promote into my role. A good person, far too green for the weight he'd been given. I'm sorry to bother you, he said, voice tight. But I don't know what to do. The audit system keeps breaking. Clients want meetings. Graham is yelling at everyone. He keeps saying you'll come back. That last line stunned me. Come back after 9 years of sacrifice. Dismissal. And now humiliation. No. Those days were gone. Trevor, I said gently. What you're dealing with isn't your fault. But understand this, Graham created this mess. Not you. Not me. He exhaled shakily, and I could hear the horror and relief mixing in his voice. What should I tell them? I looked out at the horizon, at the first sight of home. Tell them, I said softly, that Fiorina Miles doesn't fix mistakes for free anymore. And here's the part most viewers don't know. The next morning, sunlight filtered through my apartment windows in soft geometric shapes, warm, steady, undeservedly peaceful considering the corporate wildfire spreading across Brixel DataWorks. I set my suitcase down, plugged in my dead phone, and poured myself a cup of coffee before the mug reached my lips. The notifications exploded. 4 voicemails from HR, 7 from Graham, over a dozen emails marked urgent. I ignored them all and opened the message from Harper instead. Leadership tried running the audit dry run this morning. The system froze twice. Then the data bridge crashed. 2 clients are threatening to pause funding unless you're reinstated or replaced with someone of equal expertise. Spoiler, that person doesn't exist. A second message arrived seconds later. Graham's panicking. He's rewriting the narrative saying you left without warning. A humorless laugh escaped me. 9 years of scheduled overnights, missed breaks, emergency fixes at dawn. But apparently, I was the unreliable one. My phone rang, then another unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, expecting another HR script. But the transcription preview froze me mid-sip. This is the Brixel board. We need to discuss recent events. The board. They never contacted anyone below VP level. The fact they reached out to me directly told me everything panic wasn't limited to Graham. The system collapse was now a leadership crisis. Before I could process it, the phone rang again, this time a number I did recognize. Adrian. I answered immediately. Back in the States already. His voice held that effortless calm, the kind that made chaos sound like an optional inconvenience. Just landed yesterday. I imagine your inbox looks entertaining. That's one word for it. He chuckled. I spoke to two of Brixel's former clients this morning. Both mentioned you, and both expressed concern about the instability since your unexpected departure. Unexpected. The way corporate diplomacy rewrites history never ceased to amaze me. I'm not involved anymore, I said. They'll have to work with whoever Graham chose. That's the problem. Adrian replied. They don't want whoever Graham chose. They want continuity. They want competence. They want you. I inhaled slowly. I'm not breaking any contracts. I'm not soliciting anyone. You don't need to, he said. When leadership fails, clients follow stability. And from what I hear, you're the only stable variable Brixel ever had. His words weren't flattery, they were confirmation. A pause stretched between us. Fiorina, he continued, voice lower now. I'd like to meet again. There are opportunities opening ones that align with your level, not the level they kept you trapped in. A knock at my door interrupted him. One sharp, impatient rap. I froze. Adrian heard it. Expecting someone, no? Another knock. Harder this time. My pulse steadied, not fear, but something colder. Controlled. I should call you back, I murmured. Be careful, he said softly, when I opened the door. I wasn't surprised. Standing there, face flushed with desperation, jaw tight with anger, he couldn't hide Graham Turner. And this time, I wasn't the one who felt small. From here, the story begins to change direction. Graham stood in my doorway, as if the world behind him were on fire. And, in a way, it was. His suit jacket hung unevenly. His tie was half knotted, and his eyes carried that frantic sheen of a man who had spent the last 48 hours losing control of a kingdom he never truly ruled. Fiorina, he said, forcing a breath. We need to talk. There was a time when those words would have tightened my chest, made my heart race, made me shrink. Not today. I don't think we do, I replied calmly. He pushed the door wider and stepped inside without waiting for permission. The arrogance was familiar, but the desperation underneath was new. For 9 years, he began sharply, I've counted on your reliability, your consistency, my silence I offered. He flinched, a small, involuntary twitch of guilt or rage, I couldn't tell which. This isn't the time for sarcasm, he snapped. The audit is collapsing. The entire workflow is out of alignment. The clients are furious. They're not furious, I corrected. They're reacting to instability. Instability you created. His jaw tightened. I didn't create anything. You left. You fired me, I reminded him softly. He exhaled, pacing like a man replaying his mistakes in real time. Look, I may have acted hastily. Hastily, I repeated. Eyebrows raised. You called my vacation laziness. Insulted me. Then terminated me mid-sentence. That's not hasty. Graham, that's habitual. He stopped pacing. For the first time since he arrived, he really looked at me, as though realizing I wasn't the same woman he berated for almost a decade. You need to come back, he said finally. The words weren't a request, they were a plea wrapped in a command. No. The simplicity of it stunned him. You don't want to hear the terms he asked, voice cracking on the last word. There are no terms you could offer that would make returning worth it. He ran a hand through his hair, fingers trembling. I can fix this. Look. The board wants answers. They want to know why the only person who kept our structure running is suddenly gone. I tilted my head. And what did you tell them? His silence was answer enough. Fiorina, he said again, softer this time. I underestimated you. All right, I thought you were replaceable. You weren't wrong, I replied. You just miscalculated who replaced whom. Confusion flickered in his eyes. He hadn't heard about Adrian yet, or the conversations already shifting the industry around him. Graham, I continued, voice steady. You didn't lose control because I left. You lost it because you never earned it. He swallowed hard. as though the truth were a physical weight. "You're really not coming back, no." His shoulders slumped. The collapse wasn't loud. It was quiet, hollow, inevitable. He stepped toward the door, paused, and whispered, "They're going to blame me for this." "They should," I said. He didn't turn around. He just nodded once, defeated, and walked away. The silence after Graham left wasn't peaceful. It was charged electric, like the air right before a storm breaks open. I stood in my living room for several minutes, staring at the closed door, letting the weight of the moment settle. 9 years of being talked over, overlooked, dismissed, minimized. And now the man who once mocked my need for rest had shown up trembling in my doorway. Not because he lost an employee, because he finally realized he'd lost the structure holding his world together. My phone lit up again. Board of Directors incoming call. Ah, there it was, the next domino. I answered, steady and composed. "This is Fiorina." A voice cleared on the other end. "Ms. Miles. This is Director Helena Moss. We'd like clarification on several urgent matters regarding your departure." There was no hostility in her tone, just exhaustion and the sharp edge of corporate survival. "Of course," I said. "How can I help?" she exhaled. "We were unaware of any issues until this morning. We were told you left abruptly. I was terminated." I corrected gently. "Without cause. During approved leave." Silence. Heavy, damning silence. Another board member chimed in. "Is it true no one else has access to the full operational architecture?" "Yes," I replied. "Because Graham refused to allocate resources for proper training. I documented everything, but documentation alone can't substitute for hands-on knowledge." Another pause. Then Helena spoke again. Quieter. "Ms. Miles, would you be open to consulting temporarily, strictly transitional work? We are willing to compensate appropriately." My breath caught not from temptation, but from the shift happening in real time. They no longer viewed me as an employee. I was an asset, one they were afraid to lose completely. But I had learned something important on that cliffside terrace in Italy. Freedom wasn't a gift, it was a choice. "I appreciate the offer," I said carefully, "but I am not available for consulting at this time." A rustle of papers, a sharp inhale, a hint of panic behind rehearsed professionalism. "May we ask why?" "Because," I answered, "I'm exploring opportunities where my work won't be treated as an afterthought." The board said nothing, but the truth had landed. We ended the call politely, but I knew what came next. Chaos, blame shifting, political scrambling. I placed my phone down, letting the moment breathe, and it buzzed again. A text from Adrian. "If you're free this afternoon, I'd like you to visit our Los Angeles office. I think we're ready to talk specifics." My pulse steadied. Not racing, not anxious. Ready. For the first time in nearly a decade. I wasn't being pulled toward crisis. I was stepping toward possibility. I grabbed my blazer, locked my door behind me, and walked away from the life that had demanded everything. Because the next chapter, it wasn't about proving my worth. It was about choosing where it would finally be recognized. Helion Corps' Los Angeles headquarters didn't look like a corporate building. It looked like a promised sleek architecture, clean glass lines, a quiet hum of focus that vibrated through the lobby like disciplined energy. It felt like the opposite of Bruxelles' fluorescent despair. A receptionist greeted me by name. "Welcome, Ms. Miles. Mr. Cole is expecting you." Expecting me, not squeezing me between emergencies, not summoning me out of obligation. Expecting. I followed her through a corridor, lined with collaborative rooms, whiteboards filled with ideas, teams in fluid motion, no raised voices, no frantic scrambling, a workplace driven by intention, not fear. When the final door opened, Adrian looked up from the head of a long table, expression warm, controlled, almost satisfied. "Fiorina," he said, standing to greet me. "I'm glad you came. I'm curious. I answered honestly. He gestured for me to sit. Good. Curiosity is usually the first sign someone is ready to step into a larger arena. We settled into a conversation that didn't feel like an interview. It felt like recognition. He asked about my architectural decisions at Brixel, my redesigns, my risk assessments, my ability to stabilize failing systems without the luxury of time or support. Not once did he ask why I was on vacation. Not once did he imply my worth was conditional. When I finished explaining a particularly complex stability sequence, he leaned back, impressed. You weren't just keeping Brixel alive, he said. You were operating at an executive level while being paid like a mid-tier manager. I didn't deny it. And they fired you, he continued, which means they freed you very conveniently for us. He slid a folder toward me. Not thick, just heavy enough to matter. Senior Vice President. He said, Systems strategy and infrastructure. Full autonomy. Your own team. Compensation that reflects what you've been doing for years. My breath caught not because I doubted myself, but because the offer aligned so precisely with the life I had been too exhausted to imagine. I opened the folder. My future stared back. Before I could speak, Adrian added softly, I'm not asking you to make a decision today. I just want you to understand that you're no longer someone who needs permission to lead. You're someone whose leadership creates stability wherever you stand. His words felt like truth carved into stone. I closed the folder gently. I won't need long, I said. A faint smile touched his lips. Good. As I rose to leave, he added, Oh, and one more thing. You should know that Brixel's board reached out to us this morning. I froze. They're asking whether we've been in talks with you. And what did you tell them? I asked. Adrian's expression sharpened. That it's none of their business. By the next morning, news traveled faster than I could open my blinds. I woke to a string of messages, some panicked, some apologetic, some simply stunned. But it was Harper's message that made me sit upright. The audit portal crashed again at dawn. 3 clients demanded emergency meetings. Someone leaked that you were terminated during approved leave. It's everywhere. Fiorina. Everywhere I opened my browser. There, it was an industry blog headline splashed across my screen. Brixel DataWorks in operational turmoil after sudden departure of lead architect. Below it, a short but damaging paragraph. Sources claim the company's core systems were maintained primarily by a single architect whose recent termination has raised concerns regarding leadership stability and long-term operational oversight. The article didn't name me outright. It didn't have to. Anyone who knew the industry knew exactly who it meant. My phone vibrated again, another email from the board. More urgent than the last. Ms. Miles. We request an immediate meeting. The situation has escalated significantly. I exhaled slowly. They weren't calling for clarity anymore. They were calling for rescue. But I wasn't their rescue. Not anymore. Before I could reply, another message popped up, this one from an unknown address. Short enough to feel like a whisper through the screen. They're trying to blame you, but the truth is out. Don't let them pull you back. No signature. But I recognized the writing style. Trevor. A soft knock sounded at my door. I opened it to find Harper standing there exhausted. Tense, but determined. I shouldn't be here, she said quickly. But you deserve to know. Know what? She stepped inside and lowered her voice. The board confronted Graham this morning. The entire meeting was recorded. Someone leaked the transcript. My heart stilled. She handed me her phone. Lines of text filled the screen. Board member, why did you terminate the only architect capable of stabilizing our systems during audit season? Graham, I believed she was undermining leadership. Board member, or did she simply overshadow you? The transcript continued each line, a slow unraveling of Graham's authority. Until the final blow, board chair, you compromised operational integrity out of ego. Effective immediately. You are suspended pending formal review. I returned the phone to Harper. It's over for him, she said softly. I nodded. It should be. Are you, are you thinking about returning? She asked carefully. No, I said. Without hesitation, her shoulders relaxed in relief. Not disappointment. Good. You were never meant to be hidden away there. A chime interrupted us, another message from Adrian. I'd like you to stop by this afternoon. We're finalizing some details. Harper raised an eyebrow. Is that who I think it is? Yes. Then go, she urged, and don't look back. As she left, I stood in the quiet of my apartment, feeling something unfamiliar settle into my chest. Not anger, not vindication, alignment. For the first time in 9 years, my life wasn't reacting to crisis. It was choosing direction, and the direction was finally mine. Adrian's office was quieter than usual when I arrived that afternoon. No chatter in the hallways, no hurried footsteps, just a stillness that felt intentional. He stood by the window, overlooking the skyline, hands clasped behind his back. Without turning, he said, Brixell announced Graham's resignation this morning. I stepped closer. Voluntary. He smiled faintly. Nothing about it was voluntary. There was no triumph in his tone, only the calm inevitability of a storm reaching its last crackle of thunder. He faced me then. Before we finalize anything, I want to ask you one more time. Are you ready to step into a role that won't hide you? One that demands presence, not silence. I didn't need to think. I've been ready for years, I said. He nodded once, then slid a single-page contract across the table. Clean. Direct. No traps. Nothing to shrink myself around. Senior Vice President. My name, printed clearly. My future, finally visible. I signed, and just like that, something inside me, the part that had carried Brixell on tired shoulders, the part that once believed loyalty required self-erasure, finally loosened its grip. When I left Helioncore, the sunset washed the city in warm amber. I paused at the edge of the courtyard, letting the moment settle into my bones. My phone buzzed. A final message from Harper. Everyone here knows the truth now. They're saying you didn't just hold the company together. You were the company. I typed back, take care of yourself. It's not your burden anymore. Then I powered off my phone, for the first time in 9 years. Silence wasn't something I feared. It was something I chose. And as I stepped into the evening light, I finally understood being fired didn't end my story. It freed it. When I look back, I realize getting fired wasn't a loss. It was the moment I finally reclaimed myself. Sometimes life closes a door just to show you where you truly belong. How did you feel when you heard my story? And where are you listening from? Share your feelings in the comments. Send this video to someone who needs it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join me in the next stories.